Okay, great. So I assume that most of you or all of you have either read or completed or read some part of the book. And if you allow me for a few minutes, let me just cover what I understand her plan for the book, and then now let's get into the dialogue. Okay, would that work? Is that fine? Good. So basically, if you look at the chapters, what I understand her intention, that's what I catch from her word, it's kind of to unveil the spiritual secrets that hidden in the heart of Islam's pillar principles and practices. That is what I see that she wanted to cover through this book, because she says it's interesting what kind of she puts religion is perceived by many people as harsh winter. But she believes that it is a life-bearing spring that was sent to be by God instead of the harsh winter. So that is what I think her intention to show religion, that in this case is Islam, is not a harsh winter. It is a life-bearing spring. And also it has a huge potential and spiritual secrets in the hearts of the practices, the pillars, and the principles of Islam. And therefore, if you look at the chapter 6 throughout, you see basically she covers the 5 pillars of Islam in the practices, like the testimony of the faith, 5 times prayer, fasting, Ramadan, pilgrimage, Hajj, and the almsgiving, donation called zakat. So those are like the 5 pillars. She puts each pillar as part of one chapter with the purpose that the practices are not meant to be like workout. It is meant to be really unveiling the treasure hidden within us, within our heart. That is the purpose of the worships. That's what she kind of tries to emphasize. And before that is she starts with who is God, about that to in Islam to tell about God, Allah. And then the second chapter, then she tries to explain about who we are, like as a human being. Who are you? So that's kind of after understanding God, she tries to give understanding the human nature and human beings. And then after that, she goes into, the other chapters to tell about Quran, the holy book of God in Islam. So basically her kind of, I would say, this is like my understanding from the chapters and the entire writing, that's her plan is to really truly from her own experience in the introduction part, you see that she kind of tells about her experience, her stories, right? And then from her own search trial that she went through, she acknowledges that she went through different trials and search periods of her own life. And then she came back into Islamic practices again. And I think my understanding, going both sides of a kind of a gap in religion and back to practice religion. And she seems to discover something and she wants to share with everyone else. That's my kind of understanding. And it's kind of, as a Muslim practicing person, I try to really kind of relate my life and my own challenges as well to see what she puts over here. It's really overlapping. It's overlapping. Okay, now let me stop over here. It's already 15 minutes. I want to really get back to you. So now I want to just let you to kind of come up with your own experience of the book and the experience, like the parts you want to share over here, the questions you might have. Let's have a kind of open dialogue now. You can unmute yourself and just really start to share your own reading and your own reflection.
So let me ask a question, because I've never read anything of significance about Islam. I mean, I've read bits and pieces here and there, but I never have sat down to read a book about Islam. And when I read this, it was different from anything else that I had ever read about Islam. And so my question is this part of the mainstream view of that is part of Islam, or is this something that's very, very different from what most people who practice Islam believe?
Carl, this is a great question. I will say, to short your answer, this is the life of Prophet Muhammad, who brought the message, like Jesus. I will say, if you read Prophet Muhammad's biography, and if you read, like, there's a book I would recommend, Karen Armstrong. She is a Catholic religious scholar. She has written a book about Prophet Muhammad, calls Muhammad the prophet of our time. If you want to buy and read that book, so then once you kind of search a little bit and read about Prophet Muhammad, you see what she put here in writing is practiced much more deeper by Prophet Muhammad than what she put in the theory in the writing. And like Prophet Muhammad is a kind of living practice, an example beyond of what she put on her book. Therefore, I will say this is what truly I feel and I believe Islam is. But then there is a second part of your question when it comes to the rest of the Muslims. How much do they practice this in their life? And in that time, I will say it is difficult to give a clear answer because like human beings, like overall, we are all have our own challenges, problems. Doesn't matter being a Muslim, Christian, Jew, right? And so I will say Islam as a religion, I think that kind of reflects and very compatible with this writing. But human beings, the follower of that religion, we are full of imperfections, and therefore it might not necessarily reflect these writings because of our own default and deficiencies. I hope that answers to your question.
No, that's good. I mean, I am totally new to this, and what I'm here to do is to learn and to gain knowledge.
Thank you for the questions. Yeah, other comments? And like, I think we can open like this way. Any, like I have, this is like the book. You see that I put a lot of highlights. It's wonderful. So if there are any part that you want to share, it's very impressive to you. The rest wants to really listen and make the comments, because there are many parts of the book I have really, highlighted. But I want you to share, and we can have conversation.
Yes, I'm Shaila Shroff.
Yes, Shaila.
And in the beginning, you say it has a Sufi tone. It has a Sufi ideology in the book. I haven't read the book. I just came here to discuss, just to listen to what is going on. That's all. But
Okay.
then you said it is Sufi. Then how much Sufi is different than the mainstream Islam?
Thank you, Shaila. Like Sufi is in fact is like literally it means purity, and there are Muslim scholars historically they try to claim the purity of Islam through their practices and being in the very like living in the way that she described what Islam is. And Rumi is one of the greatest Sufi tradition who are more inclined to be spiritual. So overall in Islam, I think it is not like the Christianity. We can say, okay, the Muslims are split as Protestants or Catholic or Orthodox. Overall, the Muslims are, I think, very alike, except Shia tradition is a little different than this, the rest. But Sufism is a deeper understanding, I will say. The Sufism is a kind of the scholars, the Muslims who wanted to have a deeper experience of connection with God, let me put this way. And there are great Sufi examples she quoted on her book over here. You see a lot of, like stories and quotes from different Sufi scholars historically among the Muslims. But it's overall like the Muslims who try to live Islam in a very deeper way to be connected with God. That's what I can describe as the Sufis.
So to me, Sufi are more spiritual than believing in Quran by word. Am I right by having that idea? Quran is how to, and Sufis are finding it through different means, the spiritual side of understanding God. And they are not like by hearting Quran and stuff like that. They may not even go to a mosque to pray.
It all depends. Yes, yeah, it all depends how an individual can describe herself or himself, right? But overall, like there are people who describe themselves without any association to any religion as a Sufi as well, because there's more spirituality. But if we talk about a Muslim and then also called Sufi, then you see that's kind of more living spirituality under the practices, principles of Islam. Let me put this way. Thank you.
Yes, this is Steve. Would the Shia accept this book as being Islamic enough?
Thank you, Steve. I think in the introduction part, and when I read the book, to be honest, as a Muslim, I had the search in my mind. Who is she? Is she Shia? Is she Sunni? I wonder about her identity. I think as a human being, we want to label someone, right? Before we
yeah. Well, we do that too. Yep.
So that's kind of my nature inclination. I wanted to label her before I understand her book, but I couldn't label her. She hides herself very nice into the book. It is very difficult to get it, Therefore, you keep reading. And I think like in the beginning also, she's telling about, like after introduction, she's telling about reading with an open heart, right? And she tells, how to read the book. And also, reading with an open heart, it seems that she understands our nature of labeling them. And she said, if you are Sunni, you are welcome here. If you are Shia, you are welcome here. Remember? If you are Sufi, you are welcome here. And she says, I am not a Sunni, I'm not a Shia, I am not a Sufi, I am a Muslim. So that's what she tells about, her identity to go beyond of labels, I think. And therefore, I will say, I think Shia will definitely appreciate this book and find it very compatible with their principles.
Well, I found, and I really have only just gotten into it. I've read parts of the introduction, so I haven't really gotten into the depth of the book yet. But if there had been no references to any religion in there, I would have said this is written by a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, a Hindu, so far. Now, that may change as I get into the book because the approach to the divine may be specifically Muslim, but so far it seems to be quite universal.
I think she has a lot of references to Quran. So
Yes, she does.
She gets the Quran as the base, hadith, the practices of Prophet Muhammad as well. So I will say she has over hundreds of verses in the Quran as references, but it is beautifully interpreted. So the way that interpretation, the context of the verses are so impressive to me, and you wouldn't find this way of understanding by many Muslims. No, this understanding is a very, I will say, compatible with the practice of Prophet Muhammad, and it's very universal. It is very interesting.
Thank you.
Okay. So I will love to hear your comments. If not, then I have some places as you kind of really think about what you can share. Would you mind me to share? Yes.
I just wanted to comment that she doesn't, like you said, identify herself and just uses an initial instead of coming out and saying her name, that we would immediately identify her as a woman. And you say there are many, many other books written on Islam, but I wonder how many are written by women. And being a woman, I find her writing just beautiful. And I have enjoyed, I'm not very far into it, so I kind of wish we were having a series on it and not just 1 hour.
I felt the same way. As I read more, I feel, and this is a discussion of a series, not a one time. If you want to really go deeper, definitely. But I think there's a wonderful point, because when I look at her name, I initially want to also see if she's it's a man or woman. So because I searched about her, I couldn't figure out. It was later on, once I figured out it was a female. And definitely this is another great point that she covers herself. Don't look at my gender, look at my writings, So this is especially, that there could be, we are naturally, we are biases, we have prejudices against, different things. I think that's very interesting. And the question that you are telling, historically, there are many Muslim women came up to be scholars, to write the books. And she is referring some of them in her books over here. There are great mystic masters among the women in Islam. And in fact, one of them, I was about to, it's very interesting, about to share with you. If you don't mind, I want to refer to her on this, the first chapter. So page 7, if you have the book, if you want to follow, she tells, to refer God's mercy. She says the following interactions between two great mystical masters beautifully articulates God's mercy. So one of the mystical master is a male, Salih of Kashwin, and the other is the woman. Let's see the response at the conversation between them. So the 8th century mystical Muslim, Salih, said to his students, keep knocking on the door of Allah, God, and never stop. For by his mercy, Allah will eventually open his door for those who sincerely seek him. That is the mystical author says. But look at the other mystical, there's this lady, Rabia Al-Adawiyah. This is one of the most famous, almost all Muslims know this female, 8th century female mystical master. Her name is Rabia. Rabia says, when she heard this, and she said, oh, Salih, who said Allah's door is closed to begin with? So it is so impressive. Look at the approach. Who said the door is closed? It's wide open to begin with. So that is what kind of understand the mercy of God. It is beautiful, I think. And this is a female mystical of 8th century.
There were lots of images like that in the book that made parts of it really quite memorable. I mean, the poetry that she would recite, the images that she herself would create, made the whole thing come alive. Unlike lots of books, and in some ways, this book was as much poetry as it was prose. And I'm halfway through it, and the way I eventually, after reading only a little bit of it, I decided I could only read one chapter at a time, because I had to let that chapter settle, and I had to reflect on that chapter, because there was so much in it before I went to another chapter.
It's a wonderful point, Carl. I think the way that you describe, because when I read this book in the first time, I read like maybe in a week. I finished in a week, like not a chapter each time, but I want to really reflect and digest and underline. But it's almost a year passed on my first reading. Because of this session, I just took the book again and started to read again. It seems I have forgotten many things, that I was so impressed initially. I think this is our human nature, so we kind of forget too quickly. Therefore, I think that's the one of the best way to read this book. Not read the book as a kind of one time, but like sipping of your coffee, the way that you sip the coffee to get the most pleasure. I think this book is in the same nature. You get the pleasure to read, not to understand, like it's more spiritual. That's my reflection. Therefore, digesting, reflecting, like spreading to time is one of the best way to read this book. I agree, Carl.
The other thing I found interesting about it along the same lines is at the end of the various chapters, she would have recommendations for exercises that you could engage in to make it come alive for you in a way that it wouldn't if you just simply sat down and read it.
This is a great point. I wonder if any of you have followed those recommendations, and because I have not done. I want to confess, I have read all those recommendations, but I have not practiced in the way that she kind of recommended. But naturally, as a Muslim, I do practice many of the points she covers. This is part of my faith. And then when she describes, I have the experiences from time to time, what she tries to explain, and I can relate my experience with what she kind of writes. But as a non-Muslim, I wonder if any of you try to follow that practices, if it meant anything to you.
I put my toes in the water on a couple. It was, it worked. She's right.
Wonderful.
What happens when you put your toes in water?
Well, she, for example, and I don't have the book in front of me at this moment, but she talked about getting yourself prepared, for example, in a way that you would sit and you would relax and gradually connect with the world around you. That's just one example. Another example is that there were different, and Akif, correct me if I'm wrong, but different names for Allah at the 99. End of the book. Maybe 98 names. And if you were having trouble with a particular aspect of your life, go to that part of Allah and connect there. Things that didn't seem very complicated or hard or difficult to do, but had a way of working.
I think that's wonderful, because the way that in the first chapter she describes Allah, the creator, because she tells, in fact, that is interesting, the way that you call Allah, you name, it's really not an important way. So you might call Allah, you might call creator, you might call the all merciful. All beautiful names belong to the creator, So whatever name you call, he's gonna answer you. So that's beautiful. And then she is kind of telling about the origin of love is Allah himself. And I think this part, like the first part of how she describes Allah as a loving creator, is beautiful. It's very compatible with, because there are many references from Quran about Allah's names, about who is Allah, whether we should fear from Allah or we should love Allah. and that is like a lot of quotes from from Quran. Like one thing again on the same page, it says, if Allah tells, this is from Hadith. Hadith is the secondary source of Islam, is not from the Quran, but it is like almost equivalent of the Quran. In one of the Hadiths, Allah says, take one step toward me, I will take 10 steps toward you. Walk toward me, I will run toward you. So that's kind of the relationship, how much he is already ready and willing to embrace the creatures. And it is like she gives a lot of hope. She tells, he is the one transforms your mess into a message.
That line. I love that line.
That is beautiful. And she tells, he's the one who takes the victim and makes them a victor. It's poetic, it's beautiful, makes the victim a victor, and one transforms your trials into triumph. This is a beautiful thing that is giving the hope and telling about about maybe the difficulties of our life, how in fact it was not meant to be difficult. To look at from this perspective is very, very interesting. And so I think the way that she described Allah as a loving creator, and his names is all the names is definitely beautiful, especially in the Quran. God's like there are 114 chapters of the Quran. Each chapter starts with the same verse except one chapter, which is in the name of God, the all-merciful, the all-compassionate. Bismillahi Rahman Ar-Rahim. That's the original verse. And I didn't know, as a Muslim, something I learned from this book. And she says, Rahman, like the repeated verse at the beginning of each chapter in the Quran, one of the name of God is Ar-Rahman. So Rahma in Arabic, she says, is mercy. But Rahman is an extreme, infinite form of mercy. I didn't know about that. Like, it is not mercy, it seems infinite form of mercy, an extreme form of mercy. This is interesting. When kind of I learn about the meaning of that, I as a Muslim, I repeat this every day, maybe 10th time, but getting that deeper meaning is really interesting. Yeah, other, like, I love to hear from you, your questions, maybe your comments. And like, I want to share another, like, yes.
Shall I make a comment?
Yes, sure, please.
Okay, the thing I was thinking was Quran is more read than it is understood. Am I making the right thing? And she has seemed to be understood. She has understanding of everything that is in Quran. So even though it is contained in what Quran said, it goes deeper into understanding it.
I think, Shayla, I wouldn't be able to put in a better explanation what you said. Definitely, I agree. So Quran is much more read than understood by the Muslims. I agree.
Right, and practice. So they never go to the deeper meaning of Quran is all about. I only think I read Quran way back about 20 years ago. And that was a different altitude of my spiritual growth. So it was just the facts. And then maybe I had to go back and read it or read this. Because
I think this book,
Muslims usually don't go beyond Quran. I didn't even know they read any other books.
Mm-hmm. I think, like, I would say, I would recommend to definitely read this book before you read Quran, because there are many verses in the book that you can learn how to make the right approach to the verses once you learn from the book. So one thing, like on page 12, it says, it's beautiful. Love is not something Allah does. Love is something Allah is. So that is like describing like Allah as a, like, and also she says, about the names of Allah, like Carl, what you put over here, it says, let's say human being can be kind, but God is kindness. Ar-Ra'uf, that's the name of Allah. Ar-Ra'uf means kindness. He is kindness. And where we can be merciful, but God is mercy. Ar-Rahman. So God is not just peaceful. He is peace. As-Salam. That's a beautiful way to really approach, understand who is God. And here's a beautiful, beautiful quote. I truly enjoy it. This is very deep. It says, you cannot separate love from God any more than you can separate water from the ocean. So it is interesting, right? Like you cannot separate God from love more than you separate water from the ocean. It is, those are kind of the thing, very mystical, I will say, like Sufi tradition, deep thinking about the nature of Allah. Who is Allah? You know, like how to understand Allah or the Creator.
So what is it said in, say, Quran? Quran, it may be said, Allah is merciful. Not mercy, Allah is mercy.
He says, in fact, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. It doesn't say with merciful, it says Allah is mercy, but translation is really wrong because it is the name. It's not the attribute. It's the name itself. It is the source. Because therefore, those are the names of Allah. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. So this is, Allah is the mercy. But when it's translated, most of the time it's, you know, Shayla, it's translated, God is the all merciful, the all compassionate. That's kind of becomes more attribute, not the name.
Yes. And then they make, there is a little separation between Allah and its attributes, because you give it to him. It's something that he wears on or something you offer it. But it is that, it is the source of all love, all rahim, all those things is divine. That's what she has understood the way it is. I'm just listening to you guys.
Right.
It's wonderful to see that way.
No, that definitely. And one thing I just want to share here, in her writing, it is interesting from Shams Tabrizi. Shams Tabrizi is, again, a mystic, the teacher of Rumi, by the way. Now, I think he's, this is like on page 15, like the last paragraph. It is a beautiful way to reflect on Islam, how Islam views a relationship between the mind and the heart. And it tells, intellect takes you to the door, but it doesn't take you into the house. So this is where I think this book is about. So, because like most of Western understanding is based on the intellect, that's where we try to understand God from our mind. But in Islam, that is very important, because without mind, you cannot go to the door. But it will only take to the door, not into the house. So the heart will take you to the house. Therefore, in Islam, God is only truly understood through the heart. Therefore, you know, that's where the place of understanding truly of God is where you get it through your heart, not through your mind. But that doesn't mean ignoring the mind, because mind is so important to take you to the destination, to the place.
So the idea is you cannot think of God, you have to feel it. That means you have to experience it.
Here you go, exactly.
Think God and all your intelligence or books or all, they will take you up to the door. But the last step is your own, so that you can experience, you will not experience what she probably did, the author, but she tells you that it is possible that you can be on your own wings, sort of.
Exactly right. And that to
Because your
support,
heart will take you there depending on how deeply you feel, which is a very lovely thought.
correct.
I didn't know that this kind of thinking even existed.
So one thing maybe
space.
supporting to this idea on page 30, if you look at the poet Aru Barzak, that she got a poem from one of the poets. In the end, it's beautiful to tell. You are not a human being meant to be spiritual. You are a spiritual being living this human being miracle. So that's interesting, again, view, you know, that by nature you look at yourself as spiritual, not meant to be spiritual. It's very different approach, I think, you know. And also about your worth, who you are. It is very interesting. She says, stop calculating your worth with finite numbers when you were created by an infinite God. And she says, you know, over here, remember, you are not a currency to fall and rise in value.
You're not a what?
You are not a currency,
Currency, okay.
to fall and rise in value. Remember, you cannot be reduced no matter how much you subtract, because you are part of infinite.
See, this idea of being infinite is what Buddha would say self-realization.
But look, there is I think that she also quotes from non-Muslims and from one of the Buddhists. I think it's beautifully compatible with Islam. On page 31, she quotes from Zen master, and she says, like, enlightenment is when a wave realizes it is the ocean.
Yes, that's what. She's way beyond the Islam thought of.
Exactly. I mean, this is
practicing.
I think this is what Islam, because that in Islam, in the chapter 20, verse 41, a paragraph above to that one, God says in the Quran, I created you for myself. And then God created human beings from his soul. So therefore, you know, in Islam, it is believed that human beings are created from God, from God's soul. You are part of God, you know, in that nature. It's kind of emphasized here by the Buddhist. A wave realizes it is the ocean. So you are part of the ocean. If God is ocean and you are a wave, or you're a drop, not a wave, I think it's going to be better to put over there. You know, you are a drop out of the ocean, but you are ocean.
Yeah, the wave makes a instant separate existence. When you are ocean and you compare wave comes, it rises and it goes down. So you become an individual existence, momentary existence. Drop is up. You cannot separate drop. Mm-hmm. You cannot even see drop from ocean, but you do see.
I see the wave from
wave that comes back. But you cannot exist without the ocean, even if you think you are a separate wave.
So one other thing is from Rumi in the same line. It says, you wander from room to room, hunting for diamond necklace. That's already around your neck.
Yes, you are that.
Yes, that is beautiful. That's beautiful. You know, it's, I think, like the way that most of, in this materialistic life, in this century, the values and the appreciation is measured and calculated by how much we make, how much we earn, you know. But then if you read this chapter, you transcend the worthiness, the value of yourself. You go, in fact, you free yourself from the materialistic calculation mindset. And because you feel and you realize you are much more than what you think, that is what she puts over here. Your value is not defined by worldly labels. Because although God created this world for you, that is, everything is created for you. And this is very important. You know, every human being is an intentionally created by God. And in another place, she says, like over like thousands, we human beings, we are like so forgetful of one, but the creator is not forgetting any of us while we are billions. So in terms of you know, the worthiness, the value as a human being in the eye of God. And then also she puts in a beautiful way, then I try to reflect this a lot in my life when I try to stereotype, when I try to judge people. You know what I remember from this book? If the creator of the universe saw you as worthy enough to have been created, then how can I not love you? So that is when I see, even though today I was driving, I saw a beggar stopping in the traffic light. Normally you might look down upon to such kind of individuals, although, you know, it's young, but most probably drug user, and then didn't spend his time and life wisely. And you might really look, you know, down upon those type of people. But then when I kind of try to have those type of unfortunate feelings, immediately I try to remind myself, look, this person intentionally is created by God. And this is a creature of God. And if God saw that person worthy to be created, how can I judge that person? It's interesting mindset. When you look at the human being in that perspective, you immediately respect them, you love them. And you do not see, this is part of the book, you do not see human beings as a problem, but you see they have problems. That's different. They are not a problem. They have problems.
To our judgments. I'm sorry. I'm
Then
just completing your sentence. I say they have problem according to your judgments, because you think begging, it's not God's judgment that begging is bad. For you, it is bad. So it is your perspective of looking at it. And when
I think that's correct in terms of when, like my kind of correct myself when I say problem. Let's say drug, if they are really drug addicted, right? That's kind of, everybody acknowledges this is really something universally not good, right? But then I should not judge them by, you know, those kind of things, because they are specially created by God. They are the creature of the God, and they are worthy of love and respect. And I should not judge them. And I think this is something, it helps me. Look, honestly, you know, I have to be honest, like I'm a human being. And when I kind of encounter those type of individuals, the immediate auto mindset is kind of try to judge them. You do try to self-control. You just try to remember those kind of facts that you read in your life, and you try to internalize. It takes time to practice. So otherwise, it's easy to label them and judge them.
I also wanted to add something to your statement that God has intentionally created you. But there is another factor to it, and I think it is different, which means every individual is intentionally created and created different from each other. So you are not going to see somebody just like you in the world, because it was not intention of the God to make another Carl. Carl is made intentionally, and there is no other creature in the universe who is supposed to be like Carl. And Carl wants his kids to be like Carl. He wants his friends to be like Carl. I mean, I'm taking your example, but you have to know, I tell it to the school kids all the time. You are different, and you're supposed to, our right hand doesn't, our footprint or thumbprint is different than anyone else in the world. How could you think you are a human being and you are like somebody in the whole creation? You are made separately, and you are intentionally made, and you are different than anything else in the world. So you are a unique and intentional creation of God, as God. That is what I come from. I think everybody has a divine element in them. And if you see that divine element in that, it is said by a Sufi guy, I forgot, and I was teaching, I discussed that another scripture in which they only talk about enlightenment. So the enlightenment that you are divine and so is everybody else. And you will see it as long as you will only see it when you forget yourself. I don't know who it was, but he said, I think Kabir, I don't know whether you know, he was a saint. He said, when I was looking for God, I could not. When I found God, I did not exist. What you think you are do not exist once you know God, because God, you become like God. There is no, the whole thing is ocean then. There are no waves. We see the waves only when we think we associate ourselves with the waves and the differences between people. I see Carl is different because he's a man, I'm a woman, it's a boy. Carl, I'm using your name because you are right in front of me.
Feel
in the middle of
free.
my stairs. So
Feel free.
so I'm using you. So the idea is, when I see Carl as same part of the ocean that I am, I see ocean in Carl also, then there is no conflict, because I have come to my primordial state as divine, as you say. You understand what I'm saying? She said.
I think Sheila, like, I agree definitely, you know, on this nature.
But I'm so glad to see finally a woman has to say that. Islam.
Like,
Hi, everyone. Hi. I just wanted to jump in, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to comment on the example you made, which was so inspiring and insightful, of when you drive by and you see a beggar on the street. You gave a very good example. Our prophet, God bless him, in Islam, was noted to be very merciful to peasants, prostitutes, or beggars, or homeless people. It's a part of the faith to try to not judge and try to put yourself in their shoes with empathy and lend a helping hand. In fact, it goes back to the pillar of Islam, to give to zakat and charity, and to bring yourself down to their level, like humility and humbleness. So I just wanted to comment on what you said and how you personally gave your own example. It's a very brave facilitator you are, that you're giving your own sense that you sometimes judge people. So kudos to you for being courageous and to exemplify a very solid leader, to say very broadly in Zoom that, yeah, sometimes I judge people, but I try my best to get myself back to that super ego, like Allah consciousness, that stance of morality and ethics. And I just wanted to tie that into implicit bias, that all humans, because none of us are perfect, none of us are infallible, we're humans. And so what you said is very true for all of us, that sometimes we fall into that ignorance or state of fear of the unknown, and we all do it. But then it comes back to that consciousness to shift back to that stance of exactly what you said, the non-judgment, and trying to counter your own biases in that process, which you exemplified doing. So I just needed to say that. Thank you for being so bold. Thank you for being so courageous to give yourself as an example and to be vulnerable in potential criticisms that might come your way. And I think that was a perfect example.
Thank you for making this comment. In fact,
You're welcome.
Part of the book, you see, she is talking about jihad, which is the holy struggle in Islam. In fact, like, I have this jihad every day, constantly, internally, about different ways that the feelings coming and going. And in that nature, like we are ending towards our time, I just want to refer to one of a beautiful thing that she put on the book on page 35. She said, God, in fact, in Islam, God created everyone in the fitra. There's a term that she uses from the Quran. It's called fitra. Fitra is the innate disposition to believe in God. And that means she put in a nice example. She said, it is like the hardware of all human beings. This is like if we are a computer, so this is the hardware, or you can put in the software as well. I will say, maybe together, because so that is called fitra. In fact, like every human being is created on fitra. It means they are given the innate disposition to be good, to believe in God. And so that is by definition, therefore in Islam, there is no, the Muslims do not believe in the original sin. So not human beings are not born sinful. They born are all innocent. So then it kind of, again, this type of things reminds, I think from time to time, again, this is part of my reflection. So it reminds me when I see those type of people. Now I said I have 2-month-old baby, right? And I truly reflect on my baby and I see, the purity on the baby. And I say everyone once in their life was in the same position. They were such a pure, innocent, they were baby. So when they were baby, they were kind of loved by everyone because babies are so cute, loving creatures. We all love babies. And so regardless if they are murderers today, they are, like whatever the bad things they do in their life. But once in their life, they were babies. They were so pure. They were in the disposition of the fitra. So therefore, when you remind yourself that type of, origin of the humanity, and you immediately find the beauty within the human beings to love, to respect, and to find hope, because this is really, once in part of their history, in part of their track record, they had that nature. So maybe they can restore it again, if not 100%, partially. So I think in Islam, overall, this book is what it teaches. It teaches you to look at the universe, to look at human beings in very different ways, in the eyes of God, in the eyes of God, who is the infinite, loving creator. And he is the mercy. He is that's kind of the all beautiful names are in fact comes from him and he himself. So there are a lot of, I think, great things help to our understanding to shape when we interact and engage with our fellow human beings. So if you don't mind, we are towards the end. I want to really leave you to make your final comments if you want. So that we can wrap, because I want to respect the time. It was designed to be 1 hour. So could you please have your final comments?
Might we do this again in a month or 6 weeks once we have gotten deeper into the book? I haven't finished it. I'm only halfway through. But this has been a wonderful experience.
Okay, so but if we do only conditional that you guys will talk more than I will be listener.
Sure.
Just joking, Yeah, Carl, I think
I have a quote that
yes,
on page 18,
Mhm.
he's quoting a pioneer of quantum physics, she is, that says the first gulp from the glass of natural sciences will turn you into an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. Yes.
It is already highlighted on my end as well.
Everything you've said, I have highlighted, except I'm only like 2 chapters in, so I have much more reading to do. But then also on page 43, I was fascinated by the statement that the Greek word used for sin actually translates to missing the mark. I thought that was enlightening.
That
Wow.
is cute.
Mhm.
What did you
Missing the
say about
mark.
what did you say about quantum physics?
That author of that other quote was a quantum physicist, Werner Heisenberg.
Yeah, and what did he say?
He said the first gulp from the glass of natural sciences will turn you into an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. And I have been to other talks where scientists have gone through that whole atheism, and then they reach a maturity of their science with their faith, and they come around to believing in something. So I think there's truth in that.
Because the Heisenberg principle, okay, is very much used in spiritual world nowadays.
Oh, good. Wow.
Okay, and it is, I forgot actual equation, is delta T, the position of a quantum energy. If you cannot get the position and the wave are indeterminate if you get it. So if you know a position of something in the universe, you don't know the whole spectrum of it, how it is going, it's waveform. Because we are wave and we are quantum, we are wave and we are energy spot, atom or whatever. So if you know the atom, you don't know the whole scope of it. And if you know the whole scope, you cannot find atom's position on that format. It is indeterminate. That is his principle, sort of, that I understand. And that's why it is indeterminate, means you cannot determine. If I see Carl as a Carl, I don't know where he fits into the whole universe. But at the same time, if I know whole universe, I cannot find where Carl is. That's how it is, in very short. And it has been used, Heisenberg principle of indeterminate, whatever that is, they call it, is used as in spiritual world. Now the new spirituality that is infusing in the whole world. And as long as technology is concerned, I was looking at some of these swamis, gurus, very well-known talkative people, very religious people. They are now engineers, physicists. They are all, because I had to talk with the USC principal, USC, University of South Carolina, last principal. He was physicist and he was a choir boy. And then when his father came to know that he's studying physics, he said, "Oh, my boy is wasted." He said, if you go to science, you lose your religious touch. And we were talking about religious, he's quite religious. So it is nothing. If you find everything in the world, you come back to what he said. You come back to the heart. He said, where do you come back? To the, she used a very lovely word. You can go all around, think all around, but then you have to come back to your primordial state that you have divinity within you or something.
I think
she used it something. I have a very short span of attention or retention, I should say. It comes and it goes away. Anyway, thank you very much.
Shayla, I think this is a wonderful part of the book. In the beginning, it's like how the universe points to God. She is very well articulates, what you tell. She says, our eyes cannot see themselves. Our teeth cannot bite themselves. When we cannot even fully experience our own senses, how can we expect to be able to fully experience the one who created those senses? So like she gives the examples about, how the universe scientifically, some quotes. I think this is wonderful. Like Carl, comes to your point maybe. So there are many, many points in this book to really go into deeper. So if you don't mind, Christina is the one who is facilitating the events through Atlantic Institute. If you can actually email to her, just just telling we really want another session, and let's kind of have her to really coordinate to really set up another meeting. Maybe we can come with everyone, maybe read and complete the book, and we might have really a great dialogue. What we can do, since most of you are in Greenville, next time we can, if you like, we can meet in person. have our tea and coffees if in the evening. I don't know if that will be your preference. I'll be glad to really facilitate that one in person. And the one who are not able to join in person, we can definitely get them through the Zoom. We can have the mix of the meeting.
So are you an imam?
Me, I'm a tradesman. I'm a businessman. You know.
Oh, you're okay.
Yeah,
I was just curious.
No, I'm just a seeker of knowledge. That's the best way to put myself.
That would be a great idea to meet personally somewhere. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any last, anyone, Steve, do you have any comments, or Valerie, anyone before we end?
Oh, it's very enjoyable. My wife, who is on the call as well, we're just in separate rooms and are sharing the book. So yes, it would be very good to have another session and a few weeks out and give us a chance to get further along in the book. We are in Columbia, but we know where Greenville is. So
okay, perfect. So
and we are Clemson Tigers too.
Oh, here you go, Tigers. We find you the common grounds.
and I'd like to revisit this book again next year on Valentine's Day, because it might take me that long to get through.
This is gonna be a good gift to give someone in Valentine's Day, right?
Correct.
Good. Okay. Thank you so much for everyone's joined tonight for this book session, and I will also share with Christina your reflections and your request to arrange another session. Hopefully by then we will be able to complete everyone, and we have another very sweet, deeply spiritual conversation. You know, I love it. You know,
Okay.
Thank you so much. Have one.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Akif.
Bye.
Good to see you again. Bye, everyone.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Good night.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your name, okay. Your name comes as Atlantic Institute.
Oh, Akif. My name is Akif.
Akif, but
Yes,
there
ma'am.
is Atlantic Institute only.
Okay, this is the name of the.
So I don't know what. That's why I took call, because
No.
it's right in front. And
No problem, Shayla. No, thanks so much.
Thank you very much, and it was a very good time, I think.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night, Valeria. Thank you.
I cannot.